Up at the C. Anthony Gallery, there is an expedition of 5 generations of the Pissarro family, and it is the largest dynasty of generational artists. Well, I'm joined by the youngest generation, Lyora Pissarro. Good morning, Lyora.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm so wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us this morning.
My pleasure.
Now, for people who don't know the history of the Pissarro family, can you give us an inside look?
For sure. I'm somehow there are a large number of painters over 5 generations, 150 years, 4 generations above me. Most are not here anymore, but for those who I grew up with, it was a very vibrant, creative, intellectually stimulating atmosphere that covered all spectrum and all angles of the art world. So we have painters, art dealers, art historians, art critics, auctioneers, every kind of scope of the family works in art, and it's just been really inspiring. Really unique experience and very humbling. Um, Very beautiful, very high energy, and always evolving and moving, um, and something I think was very contagious. I get asked a lot if I thought that art, the ability to be good at art was genetic. And I think it was more contagious than genetic. I think you tend to thrive in an environment that seems like happy and positive and enjoying something. So I was part of that environment, and it felt really inspiring to me.
Which I think is so wonderful because you do come from such a long line of artists. Your mother is an artist, your grandfather is an artist, his father is an artist, and then Camille Pissarro, of course, is the leading legend of the family, which dates back so far into Impressionism. Now, as you grew up with such a family that was so rich in the history of the arts, what was it like?
It's a great question. It was always very colorful. It was moving at the speed of light. You know, I would see paintings being made in my mom's studio, and I would get very attached to those pieces. I loved them, and then they would leave, and you would get used to this fast moving pace of seeing something go from an idea in your mind to a reality to then the next idea coming in and that one shifting and leaving. And my mom's studio was sometimes open, and I could go into it and pick up canvases and paint with her and be a part of the process with her. And it was sometimes closed, and it had a red light on it, and that meant don't disturb. And she was in a process, and we learned to respect that as kids with, you know, her studio being in the house. We would go visit my grandfather. He lives in Ireland, her father, and he was an incredible teacher for me, and someone who still paints in his late 80s, and still teaches, but you know, like never, I think, doesn't miss a day without painting. And I have you know, 2 siblings, and they are both very creative. They work in art dealing and in set design and in clothing, but they didn't pick up the medium of painting in the same way that I did. And I just really loved it. I wasn't necessarily always very good at it, but I enjoyed it. And that was a complicated experience to have because when you come from a family that has legendary painters in it, you want to be really good, but you're also young and you're learning. And that was part of my process too, was kind of understanding my own pace and allowing myself to train outside of the eyes of the public and what people might think before I had ever even really like published work.
Which I would imagine has to be scary because coming with such a powerful last name means that there are high expectations, but your work is so unique and it's so beautiful from the entire family scope. There is so many different varieties to choose from. So who is the most influential artist in your family and how did they inspire your art?
Um, there's maybe a tie between two. I think my mom is my most influential because she was my main teacher. Each generation was taught down. So she grew up with her grandfather, Pulimil, and she was taught by him. but because I worked so closely with her, she trained me from a very young age. I was homeschooled in painting from the age of 4. And I love the way she thinks, and I love the way she um, operates in handling art, and just like her mindset is so brilliant. And I love her work, but then I also love Pulemiel, who is my great grandfather, and his work just resonated with me the most. I would have breakfast at in our dining room, and there was 4 paintings surrounding the dining room of his river scenes from Normandy, and I just looked at the reflection of water and the green in the way that he did it. That was so exciting for me. I really, really, really felt really inspired by his work. I looked at it for hours every day.
And then, of course, your family is most known for their work in Impressionism, which reflects reflection, light, and vibrations. Now, how has that translated to your work?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting question, because the world has changed so much since Impressionism was founded. Part of why Impressionism was possible was the invention of the paint tube, and paint being portable for artists to go outside for the first time en plein air and paint outside. And now we have AI. Like, we're in 2 million different worlds. It's not even comparable. But I love the intersection of art and technology, and I overlay a lot of my landscapes with projection mapping and create these impressions of light using a projector. And I was given the reflection recently that my work was somewhat of a contemporary impressionism, that I was using technology to give the impression of fleeting moments of light in a similar way that they had. And I had never thought about that, because we've moved so far from impressionism. We've just seen so much change. I still hold a lot of the themes that I grew up with. My work is focused on landscapes. It's focused on light and on the natural world. But yeah, I think the use of the technology and the way that I'm using it um, does speak to some of those terms that were founded back when Impressionism started.
Which I think is so incredible. What a great way to go back to your roots and then modernize it. Your work is spectacular. I love the message that you put behind your work as well. I have fallen in love with the Pissarro family and each and every generation, from Camille to Paul Emile to your grandfather Ash Claude to your mother's work. I am so excited to see you up at the St. Anthony Gallery. So you're coming for the weekend of the 14th and 15th in February.
That's right. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course. And then people can come, they can meet you, they can hear your stories and chat with you about the artwork from 4 to 8 p.m. every day, correct? Well, those 2 days.
Yes, for those 2 days up there. And I'm always happy to talk to anyone at any point about any questions. It's part of what makes, I think, this family so special, is that it's very accessible, and there's a lot of beautiful stories that were shared with me that I'm always happy to share too.
Well, and you come from such a long line of great teachers, and so to be able to spread the knowledge that you have then learned is incredible.
Yeah, definitely. I think the teaching aspect has been a really big part of how this family continued to paint for so long. I think it's because Camille, as well as an incredible painter, was first and foremost a teacher. And so was my grandfather and my mom, and I teach classes in New York, and I teach more how to enjoy something that you want to be good at, that you're not necessarily good at, rather than teaching the actual practice of the medium. I think we disregard things when we're not good at them. And I think I have a lot of students in my studio in Brooklyn who end up being able to find something that they enjoyed in the process of painting without having to become a full-time painter.
Which I think is
So
so
yeah,
breathtaking.
definitely. And I'm always open to teaching anyone. So that's something that is there. It's a fascinating journey into what we want to make and what we want to share.
I agree, and I think it's so wonderful that you're keeping the legacy alive through this just large dynasty of artists that you come from.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Appreciate
Thank,
your question.
of course. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, giving us all of this great information, and we can't wait to see you up in Beaver Creek.
Thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you too. See you soon.
Yes. Make sure that you make your way up to Beaver Creek on February 14th and 15th. That way you can meet Lyora Pissarro up at the C. Anthony Gallery. It's located next to the ice skating rink in the Gallery Promenade. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we've got more of the show, so stay tuned.